Hey everybody, it's Matthew of Mr. Domestic. Now this video is going to be a little bit controversial. And I am going to show you how to hybrid sew English paper piecing. Part of it is going to be using a traditional whip stitch, and then part of it I'm going to sew on Felicia, my sewing machine. And I am super duper stoked that I thought to do this and can't wait to share it with y'all. But those EPP purists out there, don't throw me any shade or anything, because efficiency is a win in my book. So if this is what you're here to learn, before we get into the content, anytime you're enjoying this video or if you get a tip or a laugh, make sure to give it the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Let's get ready to have some fun together. So this video is going to have two steps in it. Essentially, the first half of it is going to walk you through how I hand stitch with a whip stitch this part of a bow tie block. And as you can see, it's not folded over here, so it's prepared to be sewn on a sewing machine, and that's going to be the second part. So for the first part, you're going to need, I glue base all of my EPP for the most part, so I'm gonna use a Solan glue pen. I have some Wonderful Invisible thread. This is my favorite EPP thread. And I have a milliner size 10 needle. And then let me show you the basting first. So this, I'm preparing it to where any place that I am able to machine sew it, I am going to machine sew it. To me, it feels like this is the only part that is 100% critical to EPP to make sure that this looks kind of cute and it's durable. But these edges, they're all straight, so I can totally put that on my sewing machine. So here, when I baste this, and if you've never watched one of my videos on glue basting, I'll link it in one of the cards here, but make sure that you don't go to the edge, because that will leave a little pocket where the thread and needle will fit in. If you go all the way to the edge with glue, then it will harden and it'll make it harder for the needle to go through. So one more glue basting. And if you're choosing to entirely EPP this, it's totally fine, but then I would go like this and this. But since I'm preparing this for machine sewing, that is all I am going to do. So before I even inset this tiny square, I am going to sew two together. So I've already done these to be used later. Put the square aside, and then these two need to be sewn together. And the way that I've designed it for my quilt is I'm going to alternate. So just make sure that these two are on opposite sides. And I put these together, right sides together. And with my milliner, and it's already threaded, I start here, and then I tie a double knot here. I don't like to have a knot on the end of the thread and let it catch. I find that to be less durable than doing it this way, because I know that this knot is not going to go anywhere because it's affixed. And then I just start whip stitching. I whip stitch towards myself. That's just what's worked for me. A lot of people whip stitch away from themselves, and I like the stitches to be between 3 and 5 millimeters. And this, I'm doing this with the thread that I normally use. If you need to see this stitch, if you're new to whip stitching, I'll link to a card here that I have a video that goes over whip stitching with thicker thread that you'll be able to see. But here is more about how I maneuver the shapes to get that center square inset. So I'll fast forward and get to the end of here and then get to that business. And I am towards the end, and while I was stitching, I popped out a frame real quick and I got my thread cutter's ring, which is this bedazzled piece of awesomeness right there, so that I can use this to easily trim my thread instead of having to have scissors. That's one of the things I love about English paper piecing, is its portability, and not having to lug around scissors makes it super duper awesome. So, ta-da, I have these two. Now it's ready to inset the square. And I believe I have enough thread here to get this square affixed to one of the pair of those pieces. So this is where I start. Just put one side here. Let me start on this side so you can see it better. I just line this up here, and then I'm going to whip stitch this, and I'm going to make my stitch length longer than normal just to get to the middle for you, to show you what I do. So I start off here with a double knot, and then I'm just going to whip stitch until I get to the center right here. And I'll fast forward and get to the center so that we can just focus on the maneuvering. Okay, now I am to that corner where I'm just going to put the needle in the corner and get it to the edge of there. And then I like to do something that in my other videos I call the ninja action, where I turn this to where it's like a figure 8, stick my hand through and grab the needle, and that locks that in place. And I'll do it one more time. Probably can't see this thread, it's a specialty thread that's super thin, but here it is. I turn it, yeah, you can see it. And I get my finger in here and I pull it, and that's essentially doing like a loop knot right there, and it's not going anywhere. And I just love to secure the corners that way. It makes it a super sturdy stitch. And then see, I'm folding the papers. That's how I get this edge right here, is I just fold it right here and make sure that these are lined up perfectly. You might have to like wiggle it a little bit, but don't worry about the papers getting all messed up and stuff, because when I'm done with this entire section of the block, I'm gonna iron it and press it, and it's gonna look uber pretty before you take it to your sewing machine. So then, now I just whip stitch this all the way to the end. And then after this, I'm going to affix it to the other one. So that's what a lot of English paper piecing is for me, and this is why I love the whip stitch. One, I don't care if my stitches show a little bit, most of the time they don't. But then, like, don't be scared to move this paper and bend it around and let it go your way. You've used glue. If you've used glue, the paper's not going anywhere. It's gonna stay there until you choose to take it out. So, a couple more stitches and I am done stitching this part. And see, I do the ninja action again. This is how I always secure the end. I do it like 2 or 3 times just to make sure that that thread isn't going anywhere. And one more time. And then I'll use my thread cutter to cut. And ta-da! See how it's in there? Boom! You can't really see the stitches, and I'm using a lighter thread. So now this needs to go attached to this. So this is attached. Flip this over, right sides together. And I make sure to line that corner up, like this corner right here, to that. Make sure that that's flush, because since you can't really see the edges here, if you make sure that those are pointed, then it's fine. You can also alternatively feel it. You feel when both of the cards are together. And then I'm going to start on this end and then make my way to the other side. So I start here. I'm going to do a double knot on the end. And I'm showing you this right now in real time, how I really do it. If you can figure it out and see it, then that's super awesome. But essentially, I'm just doing a double knot right here. And you can see this in the other video that I carded too early. And I just do a whip stitch. And I'm going to get all the way to here. I'm going to fast forward real quick and then show you how I maneuver around that smaller square again. Okay, now I'm at the corner right here, so I've sewn this right into the edge, stuck the needle through. I'm going to do it once, and then I'll do it one more time, and then do the ninja action where I turn it, and then it's doing a loop knot right there, making sure that it's secure. And then I start to bend this around the square, so I'll bend it like this and fold it over, see, to where these two are lined up. And just make sure this one doesn't go over, that it's right there on the end where the corner is going to be. And then I'll whip stitch this. Get started right here. And go to town, whip stitching. Then I'll fast forward to right here so you can see that. And then I'm sticking the final stitch in right here, making sure that it's right there on the edge. Pulling it through once. Get a little bit closer. And then I'm going to ninja action it where I did a figure 8 and I'm pulling the needle through. Locked in place. And then one more edge of this little square to get through. See, this is why I feel like for this, especially since I made the center blocks, or that center square smaller than a traditional bow tie, I feel like I'm the king of Y seams on my sewing machine, but this is kind of itty bitty that I would much rather do this. I feel like this would be way more precise to sew that square in than I could do on my machine. And that's where you just have to judge, if you're doing this hybrid method, what parts of my EPP do I need to hand sew in order to make it look the best, and which parts can I machine sew to help with efficiency. And I'm doing a full quilt on this. I'm expecting this hybrid to, I don't know, cut the time in half at least because of how efficient it will be. And I'm super excited about that because I don't think I would do a quilt of this if I had to hand sew the whole thing. It's quite an undertaking to do an EPP full quilt. And this hybrid way makes it a little bit more manageable for me. So this is the final stitch right here, once through. Then get it in here. I'm gonna turn it. And then it is locked in place. And I broke the thread, and I'm super excited about that because I can show you how I thread my needle if you've never seen this. This is how I thread my needle. If you've been watching or watched any of my other videos, you've seen that I use a double thread. I just find a double thread sturdier. I think I'm too strong or whatever. And I break the thread a lot if I don't do a double thread. So I have the loop here. I just stick the needle here like this, and I double loop it, or loop it, and I'm inserting the loop here. You're probably not gonna see this super well because of the thread, but now this is a loop. And then I stick the needle through the loop and I lock it in place. So this is not going anywhere, and I have a double thread for the rest of it. So I'm going to attach this in here, and this is how I join them all. I'll take the tail from the previous one, the tail from the new one, and I will do a double knot using both tails. So that's 1, and then this is 2. And now we are ready to stitch this final side. And I'll get this started here. Yay. And I'll fast forward till I get to the end and then show you how I press it and prepare it to be machine sewed. So see you in a second. Okay, now I'm to the end, and all of my whip stitching has been done for this block. Did a couple ninja action knots here, one final one. Cut it with my thread cutter. It's trying to fly out the table. Okay, so now you see this, and it's kind of wrinkled, like it's a wrinkled hot mess. And so what I do for my EPP, I even do this whenever I don't prepare it for machine sewing, is I will press this now. Like, it's still not going anywhere. This is like a high heat, high steam. I press it on this side, but as you see, it starts to fold up a little bit. So this is all flattened up, and then I will press it on this side with a little bit of steam, high heat. And then this, if you let this dry without picking it up, this will dry flat, and then you are ready to go. Now I'm going to take this one and this one over to Felicia, show you how to join these together, and then show you how to join these to these, and you are done with this block. Woo-hoo! So I brought the two over to Felicia, and I've lined it up right there on the center seams. And you can also feel it on the edges to make sure that the edges are aligned. But I keep the papers in whenever I do EPP anyway. And so this, it just essentially creates a line, a guideline. So I sew right on the edge of it. And if I accidentally like sew on the paper, I do that whenever I EPP anyway. So it's no big deal. It'll micro perforate out whenever you remove all of the paper. And so I just sew this all the way, and oh my gosh, that would have taken like 10 minutes and it took like 2 seconds. And then look, Boom, boom, boom. Ah! Oh my gosh, that seam is amazing. And now I'm gonna line this up to the other one that I had already sewn, the other twofer that I sewed, and line up that center seam. So the seam that's in between the top 2 blocks and the bottom 2 blocks, like this. And I'm gonna spin these seams. I'll show you later what I mean by that. So I just line that up, and then from there I'll line up the edges, and then I'll just go ahead and sew them the same way that I did it, and I'll speed it up right now. You don't have to wait. Then I'm done sewing. Look at this. This is insane in the membrane. Whoa! So now I have brought this over to my ironing board. Honestly, like, it's crazy. This to this, it took me less than a minute and a half to sew all of that, and I know it wouldn't have done that if I hand sewed it. It would have taken like 10, 12 times that. And this is giving me an opportunity to spin the seams here, which I wouldn't have had otherwise. So if you're unfamiliar with spinning the seams, I'll link a card to it. I have a video on it. But essentially, they're gonna go rotating. So I folded this over. This is gonna be folded over this way. And I did those both before I sewed that on. And then this one is gonna go this way. And then this one goes this way. And since I machine sewed it, sometimes you have to loosen that up. Ta-da! Beautifully spun seams. This would never happen in totally EPP. And then I'll turn it back over, give this a quick press, and plot out, it's done and beautiful. I'm so excited. Yay! Oh my gosh, this is bananas to me. B-A-N-A-N-A-S. Like, the amount of time that it took me to sew this, doing a hybrid version of half English paper piecing using a whip stitch, half machine sewing, blows my mind, and now I cannot wait to do this on repeat and make an entire quilt out of this. So if you enjoyed this video, got a laugh or a tip or a trick, make sure to give it the thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Keep it positive, y'all. Mr. Domestic out. Thanks for watching my video. You can subscribe on the right, just click on my face and watch some of my other videos on the left.